Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rose Report. Tonight, we're continuing our segments on education, and our guest is Mitchell Earle, who's the COO of Praxis. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to be here and have this conversation with you.
So first of all, what is Praxis? Because while I was researching it, it seems to be very entrepreneurship-based and curriculum-based. So can you give the audience a better understanding of what it is?
Yeah, great question. So Praxis is a 6-month boot camp that results in a full-time job. And there's a professional community. People who've graduated the program, they're already in the workforce. It's a place for people to get plugged in and start their career strong.
Yeah. And what I was curious about with this, and I've asked a lot of different people the curriculum question about homeschooling, charter schools, because what I found is that curriculum is pretty much the same everywhere. It's teaching the same subjects that don't really get you anywhere. What does the Praxis curriculum teach?
Yeah, the goal of the Praxis curriculum is to make you more employable. It's to help you understand and learn the practical skills that are actually valuable in the real world, the skills that hiring managers and companies are looking for when they're making hiring decisions versus, you know, going to school and learning English literature, but, understanding poetry isn't actually valuable on the job. So we want to help people gain the actual practical skills that can make them more valuable in the real world.
And how does this curriculum work? Is it digital? Do people have to go to classes?
Great question. So everything is done completely remotely, and the curriculum is a combination of workshops, project-based learning, different modules broken up that give participants a broad sense of business acumen, but also help them discover what types of careers and roles are actually good fits for their interests, the skills they have, and then what gaps they have and what they need to do in order to gain the skills they don't have that would make them more valuable.
Well, having recently graduated from high school, I know that there isn't a lot of sussing out, aside from a career fair, what you're good at and placing you with it. How does Praxis take the data of what a particular student is good or bad at and place that with a company or a startup?
That's a good question. So I think that mostly career assessments and the traditional educational model, the way that they approach it, is typically ineffective. What I've seen to be more effective working with participants and also just anecdotally from my own experience is this process of discovery, and that process is in part it's being exposed to a lot of different things and trying them out and physically experimenting with those things, which is why I think that people going directly into college before they even really understand what is it that I'm good at, what is it that I actually enjoy, is typically, or in many cases, can be a really bad situation where, especially where debt's involved, where you start studying a particular major with no sense of whether there's a career on the other side waiting for you or a job out there that you're even going to enjoy in that path. So that's why I think that this early phase of figuring out what you're good at and what you're going to enjoy doing is more of an experimentation process than than sitting in a classroom and being lectured at.
And I think that that's true. There really is, and I've spoke about this before, there's a real lack of mentorship just going on in the world right now. People don't have the time or the patience for it. So with Praxis, I understand that you're taking away the lecturing part of it. Do students have the ability to interact in real time with people outside of just, getting their grades back?
Yeah, so we actually don't even, grades are not something that we focus on. We don't care about people's GPA, and I don't think the real world does either. Our program is designed to really help people engage with one another, both their peers and people that are, they've gone through the program, alumni, as well as a network of advisors. On a weekly basis, they're interacting with professionals that we bring in and do workshops from, all different walks of life, different career stages, to give them a little bit more, exposure to the real world, give them exposure to different career paths. And the projects are, projects that you're working on are very interactive, and they're actually in line with the types of work that people would be doing in the real world in real jobs. And so it's less about completing arbitrary assignments or checking boxes or getting grades, and it's more about discovering what it takes and what it means to create value and to do things that other people, they're willing to pay you for it. And so it's it's a very interactive thing, and it changes the impetus from like authoritarian
Right.
teacher student to, you know, like peer to peer, and you know, person in the market to person who has a job to be done.
And you hit on a really important point. Young people don't really know what they're going to be paid to do, because a lot of people will go into even things outside of liberal arts education, even majors they just can't excel in. And they don't realize that if you have all of these degrees and you suck at it and you can't do the work, you're still not going to get hired. So I
Yeah.
think that that's an important point, that even in apprentice programs, people don't always understand, is that aside from being in a specific trade, that you don't get hired because you just have a degree. Do you have a lot of young people in this? What is like the age breakdown?
I would say our sweet spot is really like 18 to 27, people that are still on the cusp of starting their careers, or in many cases they've opted out of traditional higher education, or
Right.
maybe they went for a little bit and they decided, hey, this isn't for me, or I'm not sure if this is worth it, or even maybe this maybe college is something I want to explore, but I don't know that it's the right decision for me right now. And so there's a wide variety of people with different levels of experience and different background, you know, different life experiences as well, coming into the program and going out on the other side, landing really cool, high paying jobs compared to the average college graduate. And that's something that I think if colleges, if when students start to buy into the fact that the degree, that piece of paper itself is not the key to landing a good job, I think more people are going to start scratching their heads and saying, you know, is this the right decision for me now? Is this really worth it?
And colleges are not, I think people think a lot of times that colleges help kids get jobs. And that's not necessarily always the truth. There are some schools, I think Ivy League schools, those big top 10 schools, they want that they can get kids to a certain level. But for most colleges, for state schools, even for smaller private schools, it's not going to be you're going from college to a really good job or even an entry level job. Do you think that that causes a lot of young people that mistaken assumption to go to college?
That may be the case. I know there's an interesting study I read a while back. There's like 58% of students claim the reason they go to college is to get better jobs.
Yeah.
And I think that I've been wrestling with this as well, because you would think that the response with the rising cost of college, the increasing student debt load, is that many parents and students alike are saying, hey, let's try and find a better way. But I almost think that there are other social
Yeah.
draws, social reasons that people make that decision, because they don't want to be left out. They have a fear of missing out on that experience. And let's don't get me wrong. There's when you're young and you're going out into the real world for the first time, there's value in getting that socialization and being away from home and like going out and making your own decisions on your own. Whether college is the best place and the healthiest, safest place for that, that's probably to be argued with. But in as far as the job market goes and college's place in that, is college, even a college degree, that's a signal. Employers are looking for signals. They want signals that tell them, hey, this person is going to show up, they're willing to work hard, they have the skills necessary to be successful. And I think that employers in many cases are taking calculated bets. If a student was good enough to get into Harvard,
Right.
I'm willing to make a wager that that person is probably
Right.
a better worker, or more likely to just be really good at following rules and doing the job, than somebody who went into community college. And whether that's an accurate assessment of, you know, a graduate from Harvard versus a graduate from community college, that's left up to debate. But employers are looking for that signal, and in many cases they're going to colleges that the signal isn't strong enough on
Right.
its own to really be effective, and in many cases that comes at a really high price tag.
And I know that internships and apprenticeships can also be a signal to employers. How do students in Praxis go from having a really good internship or apprentice to being employed? What are the steps there?
Yeah, so on the other side of our boot camp, we actually help them land full-time jobs. So that's part of the guarantee of the program. We are very selective about who we let in. We want people to be highly ambitious. We want them to be the type of people who take initiative. They're willing to work hard, And we've built a strong reputation with our business partners that when somebody comes out of Praxis, they are the type of person you're going to want to employ. But it's not just about the strength of our brand as a company. It's about the strength of signal that participants can create on their own through the projects they're building, the portfolio they're creating. When a hiring manager sees that, they can look at it. They can actually click in and they can view projects. And those projects, to hiring managers, they see them and they say, wow, this person, in order to do this project, they must have known how, they must have developed the skills that are actually going to be successful, make them successful in this particular role. So it's about approaching taking into account that there are signals hiring managers are looking for, but what if you can build a better signal than a degree or a bullet point on a resume? What if you can show someone that you're actually capable of doing the job versus just telling them with a resume or degree?
That's an interesting point I've never really heard before, that employers have the chance to go in and look at the actual examples of casework or other business-oriented programs or things that the student has accomplished. Do you think that forces the student to achieve at a higher level in your program?
I think so, but I also think what it does is it changes the mindset from this one where people are trying to rack up as many accolades and lofty sounding signals as possible, and instead they're thinking about, how can I build something of substance, something that's actually, the burden of proof is on me now to convince somebody that I'm good enough. And I think that there's a common belief if you go look at any job board, you start clicking through and many of them are going to say, degree required. I think a lot of people see that and they pause and they say, well, I'm not going to apply to this job because I don't have a degree. And I think that's an unfortunate assumption. I think that it's actually an opportunity for people to say, hey, what's a better way for me to show that I'm really good, that I'm really valuable, and I can be an asset to this company than just applying the normal way that everybody else does. And so it's about helping participants take this fundamental shift about the way that they think about even going and pitching themselves to companies.
And because this takes a certain level of involvement, people have to be very ambitious. How does Praxis do a screening process of students? Because obviously you don't have to rely on grades all the time, but what does the evaluation process look like to get into the program?
Yeah, so it's three parts, and the first part is essay portion of the application. And what we're measuring for there is we're looking for some kind of work experience. We want to know that people actually know what it's like to have to show up, to report for duty and do the job, because the real world is tough. Like, if you don't show up, you don't get written up for detention, you may lose your job. So there's some work experience, and also there's projects, people that are naturally curious, so they're reading, listening to podcasts, consuming content out, and they're actually exploring ideas. They're interested in things, and initiative. So is this somebody who always waits to be told what to do, or are they actively going out and trying to achieve their goals? Are they ambitious? Are they self-starters? Do they have any type of real world life experience that makes them someone who wants to go achieve? And it's not about it's not so much about filtering for high achievers like colleges do. We don't care about your resumes or how many student groups you're in. I think a lot of students, they can go sign up for a lot of clubs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a good employee. So we're trying to get to know who people are and understand, are they somebody who actually has a desire to go be valuable? And then, that's kind of the basis of the vetting. There's also interview rounds.
And interview rounds are important. I think a lot of people really underestimate how people are in interviews, because I know in school, we don't really devote any time to public speaking. We don't devote any time for preparedness, even in creating portfolios. So when you're interviewing, especially younger people who are maybe looking at Praxis as an alternative or right out of college, do you think that the interview skills, that's one of the parts that young people tend to have to work on the most?
Maybe I read a startling statistic the other day. It was something like over 70% of adults, one of their biggest fears is public speaking.
Yes. Yeah.
Or there was some variation of that statistic. And I don't think it's just students. I think that students tend to have when they don't, if they don't have a degree or they don't have credentials and they
Right.
don't have a lot of work experience to fall back on, you have to rely so much more on your soft skills to convince people that you're good at doing something. So if you're not naturally a strong communicator, you're almost at a disadvantage. And so when we're vetting people, it's less about how strong of a communicator you are today, though you do need to be able to
Right.
communicate and write and be able to articulate your, those different types of things. But um, we also want to help people improve. And even outside of our program, I do think there's probably not as much involvement, for young people, like interacting with other people,
Right.
interacting with people who are older than them. And I think that puts them at a disadvantage when they go onto the job market. And I think that school is also kind of a weird, it's a weird environment for
Yeah.
students to get better at interviewing or interacting with people who may hire them someday, is because all of your network is horizontal. You're
Right.
in class all day with people your same age, and your only interaction with adult figures is like an authority basis, like
Right.
talking to a teacher or talking to the principal, and that type of relationship dynamic where it's authority figure and I'm supposed to follow the rules, that can create a really unhealthy stigma whenever you're going out on the job market.
I think that that's true. And one of the things I've been curious about, because there are so many gaps in education with curriculum and preparedness, and I've asked education experts this before on this show, and they have sort of looked at me like, what are you talking about? The development of your curriculum, how did that happen? How did you develop it? Did you use it as a template from a different service? How did it come to be?
Yeah, so our curriculum is less, like Praxis is less about being a college or an educational institution. It's more about helping people start their career strong and learn how to create value in the real world. So I know that in the earlier days, there was a lot of involvement, asking other people who were professionals and experts in different fields, but that curriculum continues to evolve based on what we learn about, different jobs, what hiring managers communicate to us, what businesses communicate to us. Hey, these are the skills we'd like to see. These are the skills that we look for whenever we're making hiring decisions. And it's about continually evolving our curriculum to make it facilitate the development and learning of those skills that are actually valuable in the real world. I don't care about whether somebody graduates and walks out with an ability to analyze a poem or not. Like, if they want to go explore that on their own time, that's great, but that's not something that's going to get them closer to their goal right now. And so we try to eliminate a lot of that fluff that is usually packaged into the traditional higher education models.
And curriculum does have to evolve. I've had people on who think that we can use the same sort of classical curriculum in any case that we used 30 years ago, and that isn't true, because curriculum has to involve technology. It has to involve a growing job market. With the job market and the partners Praxis has, how do businesses get involved with you so that they can have access to your talent pool?
Yeah, so we have a lot of this is outreach, but also we have a page on the website where people can come find us, and our business partner network grows organically as well. So when we're working with participants later in the boot camp during the placement process, we are identifying opportunities, both companies and roles that are good fits for them. They're interesting to them. They offer them a good place to go start strong. If those businesses are already in our network, it's very easy to make introductions and get them in front of those businesses. And beyond that, we will help them pitch companies that are not inside of our network. And what I mean by pitch is not, hey, let us help you polish up your resume and send it in. It's, let us help you create a very strong signal. Let's create a value proposition. Let's go figure out who the right person in the company is to send this to, and create something of value to them that when they see this, they're going to want to stop and take the time and review it and get in touch with you. And so even if that doesn't result in a job, you've built a lot of social capital with those people you're getting in touch with. And in many cases, as hiring managers and that are outside our business partner network see these types of things, that they hire their first participant, they want to hire a second one. They want to talk to more people, because the bar for many of these entry-level jobs, the bar typically is so low that when they see somebody go the extra mile, that catches their eye.
Right. And with networking, do Praxis students have the opportunity to network with each other so that they can get to know each other, or maybe if they realize that someone has a connection somewhere, they can help each other out?
Yeah, great question. So as soon as people, they're admitted into the program, they're ready to start. We give them access to our online community, and that's people who are going through the program, people who have graduated through the program. So there's a very rich and thriving online community of participants and alumni, and it's really cool to see some of the things that are happening. For instance, like you have a sales mastermind group of people who are in sales now, and they're out of the program, and some people in the program participate in this as well, and they're meeting on a regular basis, talking about things they're learning in their jobs, problems they're having. They're workshopping how to get better at sales. There's one for creatives, there's book clubs, there's all these different things organically happening as part of that community. And it's a really cool way for people to go start and build a really strong network. It's not probably the 25,000 students that you're gonna,
Right.
maybe bump into on campus, but it's all people who have the same. They're highly ambitious. They're serious about a self-directed life and a self-directed education, and they're serious about putting in the work and exploring the things they're curious about. And that's just, I would take a small network like that over the one that you'll develop at college almost any day.
So Praxis does have a community aspect to it because, like you said before, a lot of young people and older people as well worry about the lack of social component with online programs or with online apprenticeships. So having that, I think, maybe makes people less fearful of it. When you talk to young people or people in the program, what have they been through the ringer with academia? Have they been through it with trying to get a job, or are they just looking to begin their process?
I think that we encounter people at various milestones. Some people have come from homeschooling, and they're just, college never appealed to them. Some people, they're done with public school, and they're like, hey, the idea of going back 4 more years
Right.
to school is just not appealing to me. Some people go to college for a few years. They just, it's not really filling the void that they thought it would, and they're looking for something else. And then there's even people who graduate college. They went through it, and they didn't get what they were looking for. They didn't get that all their answers, or they didn't have everything answered by going to college. They're still, uncertain of what they want to do. In fact, that was me. I was one of those
Right.
people when I went through the program a handful of years ago. I was several years out of college, and I thought going to more school was the answer to help me figure out what I wanted to do. And it turns out just getting out there and experimenting and getting connected with other people who are highly ambitious and they push you to be a better version of yourself, that's enough of a motivator for you to go figure it out.
And how long does a Praxis program take? Is it like grad school with 2 years or 4 years?
Great question. So our boot camp is 6 months, and placement, you're getting a full-time job by the end of that 6-month boot camp.
And that's an important point too for a lot of people, because I know how much time is just wasted in academia, or how much time is
Mhm.
just wasted even in other programs, because you spend all this time going through introduction stuff. I'm in college right now. I spent 6 months or a whole semester
Yep.
relearning all the stuff I learned in senior year. So that's an
Yep.
important point. So just in closing, what would be your pitch to people for talking about pitches right now for why they should choose Praxis or look at it for their children?
Yeah, so I think that there are better ways to discover what makes you come alive than sitting in the classroom. And when I think about like why we even exist, it's to help people do that, to discover and do what makes you come alive. And if you have a fear of going out and doing the things that it requires to go figure out what makes you come alive on your own, then maybe college is a place for you to go. Maybe sitting in classrooms and being told what to do is a better place for you. But if you're somebody who wants to figure it out on your own, you're somebody who doesn't want to wait, you're somebody who doesn't, you're a debt averse, and you want to live a self-directed life, and you want to self-direct your education and career, this is the place for you. This is the community of people and tribe you've probably been looking for, and we would love to talk to you.
I think that was a good pitch. Where can people follow you on social media?
Yeah, so my personal Twitter is @Mitchell_Earl, and you can learn more about Praxis at discoverpraxis.com.
And we'll link all that below. Thank you so much for coming on and continuing our segments on education.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.